Good day, everyone. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Welcome back to the Information Systems Auditing class. This is our eighth session, and we're going to discuss how to actually conduct audit to a certain cycle. In this session, we're going to discuss about conducting an audit to the revenue cycle. If you still remember, in your accounting information system class, the revenue cycle is divided into two major types of transaction, which is the credit sales transaction, and the second one is the cash sales transaction. Now let's look at each of the transaction and how it affect with the auditing process. Now, I divided the revenue cycle here. These three processes, sequential batch processing, computer-based cash systems, and real-time sales and cash receipts to the credit transactions, while the point of sales is the cash transaction. Now, let's look at the sequential batch processing first. We divide it into two, which is the manual batch processing and the automated batch processing. Now let's look at the batch processing here. As you can probably see here, the first batch processing is where we conduct sales or receive customers' order right here. And then the thing about batch processing and why it should be done in batch, because there's this transaction here by the credit department, which is to approve customer credit. So after the sales receive customers order, before they can continue with the process of the transaction, they need to be approved by the credit department. And the second batch processing, manual batch processing, is on the warehouse and in the shipping. After it's being processed inside the system, then of course goods will be picked from the warehouse and then being shipped. These types of transactions are conducted in manual batch processing. And meanwhile, the second types of batch processing, which is the automated batch processing, can also be seen here in the middle, which is the data processing one. As you can see here, this is the automated data processing where we input the data from the batch process. We input it in batches by using keystrokes, for example, using keyboards, right? So you input all of the data that is being collected in batches. Yeah, we input it here from the sales transactions, and from the warehouse and shipping transaction, we input it here. Yeah, and then after that, it will be processed in edit run, and then sorted, and then updated inside the account receivables and billing program, and then another sort run, yeah, and then update to the master file, inventory master file, and other master file. And it also will be going to be updated inside the journal voucher files to be added, yeah, in the batch process. Yeah. Okay, so that's the manual batch processing inside the revenue cycle. Now let's look at the other processes. Computer-based cash system. Now let's look at how this can be done. If we see here, although the name suggests computer-based cash receipt system, the first thing that the company does is actually to receive the checks in manual batches. As you can see here, yeah, the customer sends checks and remittance expires, and then he collected in batches, reconcile them, right? And then afterwards, send to the bank and cash in all of the checks, yeah, and record the cash receipts by updating here, right? And in here, in the account receivable, we update the account receivable, yeah, after we receive the checks. And then we go to the actual computer-based processing, which is the data processing entry. From the update of cash receipt and the update of account receivable, you input to all of the appropriate files here, right? And then if finished, then uh, we actually put the checks in the bank, and then we cash in the check, and we actually receive the cash in our account. Okay, and next is the third transaction, which is the real-time sales transaction and real-time cash receipts. Okay, now let's look at what happens here. The biggest difference in this transaction is there are no credit department. The credit department's action or task is actually integrated inside the data processing system. As you can see here, there is an automated credit checking here and inventory update. Yeah. From the when we look at here, when customers order, they directly input the order inside the systems through sales department, input it through a terminal, and it will directly check the customer's credit here from customer's file, whether the customers can still have available credit or not, whether they can continue with the transactions or not. If it's finished, then it will be an open sales order, yeah, in here. When it's recorded, now we can directly input to the warehouse and the shipping department, waiting for stock to be released, and then reconcile with the packing slip, and then update to the courier so that they can send the goods to the customers. Yeah. For the recorded sales and invoice will be updated inside the files here, and it will update the accounts receivable. Yeah. So that's the biggest difference. You can do it in real time due to the automated credit checking here, right? Okay, now next is the point of sales transaction. As I have mentioned previously, the point of sales systems is used to record and handle the cash sales. As you can see here, this is where customers can receive the goods directly at the point of the sales. That's why it's called the point of sale system. So customers can finish all of the transactions by doing giving the customers order, and then paying the goods, and also receiving the goods and taking the goods to uh, his home, right? So it's directly on the point of the sales. And afterwards, as you can see here, after the transaction is done, then it will the cash that is being received will be directly inputted inside the bank here, right? And that's basically most of the information systems for the revenue cycles that can uh, be employed inside the corporation. The question is that how can we audit this type of information systems? Now, first, if you still remember in your auditing class, we need to define the specific audit objectives, yeah, for the revenue cycles. We have the existence and occurrence, completeness, accuracy, rights and obligations, valuation or allocations, and of course, last is the presentation and disclosure. And for each of these management assertion, we need to define the specific audit objectives. For example, here I'm looking at the completeness objective. We need to determine that all amounts owed to the organization at the balance sheet date are reflected in account receivable. That's for example. So all of it is already been recorded in complete inside the account receivable balance. Now, that's an example. Now, after we define the audit objective, next we're going to uh, try to understand the internal control that is employed inside the information systems on the revenue cycle. Now, this is where we will conduct several understanding in the control, and of course, in trying to understand the information, the internal control, we need to conduct some tests of controls. As we have discussed previously in our previous meetings, at least we can try to understand and test input control, process control, and output control. Some examples of understanding the internal control inside the information system. For the input control, we can conduct a validation control test. Yeah, we can do some trials and error to make sure that the data is validated so that the data is accurate. So this is for the accuracy assertions. Yeah. For batch control, you can test it using the ACL profile and total count. So we can see the batch total, and this is for the to prove that the management assertion is in accordance to audit objectives of completeness and accuracy. And other than that, we have the update control, access control, and physical control, and each of the tests are in line with all of the audit objectives that we have previously discussed. And last, the output control, we can conduct a review test. This is to make sure that the audit objectives of completeness and accuracy is achieved and proven. We can see all of the reports, logs, or audit listings. And after we understand about the information systems control, and we are sure that the information systems control is adequate or efficient or effective, or maybe not, then we can continue with conducting substantive tests. This is where your practice or tutorials from ACL is useful. I'm not going to demonstrate all of this. This is what you will have to be done by you guys, right? Understanding data, verify using ACL command, accuracy and completeness. We can conduct stratify, review invoice, shipping, and so on. To test the existence objective, we confirm. To test the evaluation allocation, we can conduct an ACL account receivable aging test, and so on. Well, I think that's about it from me. We'll continue the discussion in our synchronous discussion session in the class. I'll be seeing you guys. Good day. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.